Well, good morning. There we go. So today, let's have some fun. Let's learn how to get more out of life. Whether you're planning, let me have a show of hands. Anyone here 100 years old? No? Okay. Does anybody know somebody that was 100 years old? Awesome. Yeah. So people are living. Anybody here have parents or grandparents that lived to be 100 years old? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 6. Yes. Awesome. So here's the thing. So maybe it's genetics. You know, they say there's that part, but they're saying only 20% of that is genetics. So we're going to go and talk about a lot of different things today. Before I move on, I'm going to talk a little bit, and then we're going to have speakers. So Christy over here works at Anytime Fitness, Anytime 24-hour Fitness.
Anytime Fitness.
Anytime Fitness. But you can go 24 hours a day. It's pretty cool. But she knows like helping seniors. Jonathan's going to be coming and talking about connections and purpose in life. And Rick's going to talk more about the mind body. And so anyway, let's get started. So we're going to have fun. And Abraham Lincoln said, in the end, it's not the years in your life that count. It's the life in your years. And I put that there. One of the things that we have some clients we've been working with that are older, and I told them about this, and some of them didn't want to come. They said, I don't want to live to be 100. And I can understand that. I'm getting a knee replacement and a hip replacement, and it hurts like heck. And so it's like, if I had to live the rest of my life in this kind of pain, I would not want to live to be 100. But the good news is our healthcare services and, it's like so improving. I'm going to have a knee replacement, hip replacement. I'll be back walking and back feeling good again. So I had hoped to have somebody that was 100 be here to talk to us, and I didn't. So one of the things I did, have you ever heard of super centenarians? Yeah. That's people that live to be 110 plus. So, before this, I had never heard of them, but as I was researching this topic, I'm like, wow, people live even longer, and this Parker here died at the age of 115 years old. Can you imagine? So they were asked what's her key to longevity. She didn't really have a lot of advice, but her grandson said that she would actually help other people in their wheelchairs. At 115 years old, she's helping them. She's staying fit. So she wasn't in a wheelchair. Her other thing that she did say is more education is important. And so congratulations for being here. You guys should all pat yourself on the back, because the more you learn, the more you help your mind, and you learn how to help your body. There was a French lady named Jeannie, and she lived to 122 years old. Can you imagine? That's old. And she smoked until she was 117. So how much have we heard? Don't smoke. Guess what? She was eating 2 pounds of chocolate. I mean, that's a week. She was doing that, and she did treat her skin with olive oil. But she said that what she believes was, this was Judy here, the reason that she lived longer was because she was relaxed. She didn't let anything bother her. So how many of us have heard stress kills? Yeah. So Rick's going to help to touch on that a bit today, because it's hard in our environment, not to be stressed about things. Okay, so the fact is people are living longer, right? We've all heard that. And so today, what I invite is to add years to your life, but also add life to your years. Because why live unless you're having a good time, right? It's like you want to be enjoying yourself, and still be not just in a nursing home hooked up to a tube or something. I mean, that just does not sound like fun to me. So here's what I found really interesting. These are Americans that are over 100 years old. You can't read this very well, but this was in the year 20,000. We had over 50,000. 2010, 53,000. These are numbers of Americans that are over 100. So now we're looking at the year 2020, 90,000. So around now, probably twice the number in 20 years are living longer. So whether you want to live to be 100 or not, you might. Let me ask you, does anyone have an expiration stamped on their body somewhere? Tells you when you're going to expire? No, we don't, right? We might say, well, here personally, my father died when he was in his 50s. I'm 67, so I'm beating the genetic thing. But my mom's 89, so we don't know whose genes we have, right? So, we don't have that expiration, so why not take care of ourselves so that if by chance we live to be a centurion, maybe we have a super centurion here in our midst. Could be. So here's an interesting fact. Let me apologize for this slide where it says the elderly population is growing rapidly. I don't like the word elderly. I like older adult. Or baby boomer, senior, but elderly? I just don't like it. Okay, so here's our baby boomer generation. From 2010 to 2030 is when the baby boomers are going to be sliding in and getting up past up into the 75 years of age. So here's what I found really interesting about this. So the boomers, okay, we age to here. Look at how this line kind of dips. It's not going up. But this age group, that what a lot of us are in, is growing, and so is over 85. That's why we're going to see the increase of people living to be 100. So I just found that an interesting statistic. So what, in the title of my topic, I put about a new paradigm. So paradigm, what is a paradigm? It's a way of looking at something. It's a set of theories, assumptions, and ideas contributing to our worldview, creating a framework from which we operate every day, usually unconsciously. We just automatically do these things, right? We don't even know. So under that, where we say, I have a little logo of U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. They had a page called Active Aging, a Shift in Paradigm. So I wanted to just let you know what the U.S. government is saying about it. Active aging reflects the desire and ability of many seniors to remain engaged in economically and socially productive activities. Stereotypes of seniors are unproductive, dependent, or unfair, detrimental to the vitality of society as the dignity of individuals. Government policies and programs should promote active aging and include full social and economic integration into society of older people, and with due regard, giving them individual choices and circumstances. So I am happy to say our government is thinking along those terms, that they want to give us choices and allow circumstances and not be just pushing us one way or the other. Okay, so excuse me for reading a few things. Rick's been laughing at me this week because I came across this story, which to me really is a fun way to look at a paradigm. And it was the monkey experiment. So 5 very hungry monkeys were placed in a cage as part of an experiment. In the middle, who's laughing? Have you heard this story before? It's a fun story though. In the middle of the cage was a ladder with bananas hung up on the rung. One of the monkeys spotted the food and they began climbing up the ladder. As he did so, the researcher sprayed him with a stream of cold, freezing water. And not only did he knock him off the ladder, he sprayed the other monkeys too. So the monkey on the ladder scrambled away, no banana, went over with the other, and there were the 5 cold, wet monkeys. After a little bit, another monkey attempted to climb up that ladder, and the same darn thing happened. That researcher sprayed him, cold water on him, knocked him off the ladder, and then he sprayed all the other monkeys too. So the third monkey, in between this time, okay, so the researcher at this point puts away the hose. No hose, no cold water coming, right? But the third monkey goes over the ladder, starts to go up. The other monkeys are like, no way. We do not want to be sprayed with that cold water. And they started hitting him and pulling him off and wouldn't allow him back up the ladder. So none of the others monkeys even tried to go up that ladder. So they have this belief in their head, don't go up the ladder. That cold water is going to come down and it's nasty and cold and it hurts. So the second part of the experiment was they took one of the monkeys out of the cage, moved in another monkey who had no idea of what had happened. So the monkey comes in, he's hungry too. He sees the bananas, and so he's like, yeah, I'll get those bananas. Starts to go towards the ladder, and 4 other monkeys go, no, you cannot go up that ladder. Bad stuff happens. They fight him off, pull him off. So then they replaced all the other monkeys, one by one, with this same thing. And here's the interesting thing. The first monkey that was replaced didn't know why you don't do this, but that monkey actually encouraged the new monkey. Don't go up that ladder. We don't do that. Bad stuff. So towards the end of the experiment, now we have 5 monkeys in the room. Bananas up there. They're all hungry, but none of them will go grab those bananas. Why? None of those monkeys experienced that. None of them got the cold water on them. But they had a belief, our tribe doesn't do that. That's bad. That's really, really bad to do that. So that is a paradigm, right? That's a belief. And here's one of the things that's interesting, is all of us have paradigms. All of us have beliefs. Sometimes we don't even realize we're operating with those beliefs. It's automatic. We just do things. We don't know why. I mean, I know I do it all the time. It's just like an automatic habit. It's things we grew up with, something maybe we experienced as we were aging. We have these beliefs. We have these paradigms, and we have them about aging. And so, it's no matter what that paradigm is, I'm inviting you to start questioning things. Why do I think that way? So here's an example. I'm going to use exercise as an example. This one lady was sure she was going to die when she was 89 years old. Her mom died when she was 89. So I'm going to die. And so why should I exercise? I'm going to be dying in 2 years anyway. Well, what happens if she doesn't die? She might be one of those that live to be 100. We don't know. But the one thing that we know is that if we move, we feel better. But that is a paradigm shift that we have to make. So there are lots of different paradigm shifts to make. And so this is on your printout there. And when I first saw this, I thought how well this relates to paradigms. So all of us have these different beliefs in our head. We might think of how long we're going to die, or whatever that belief is. If we have that belief, those are our thoughts. We don't know where those thoughts came from. They're just in us. They're beliefs we have. It's a paradigm we have. So as we have these thoughts, it creates feelings. And the feelings then move to make an action. So if you have a different thought, you're going to have a different action. It means you're going to have a different result. So, and here's the thing. we've heard about attitude, how important attitude is, and that, if you have a positive attitude, you're going to live longer. Well, one of the things I heard about, will make sense to you guys, some people have like negative thoughts about, things. And sometimes that negative thought will trigger somebody to do it. It's like, okay, I'm going to exercise because I don't want to feel bad. It's like, so no matter what it is, if you're doing the results, but one of the key things that the scientists and people are finding is when you do things with a positive attitude, it often makes a different result. So I'm sharing that to help you guys kind of have an open mind as we hear the speakers today. So in your printout, I actually have more that goes along with this, but our attitude is very important. Having a positive attitude will help you enjoy life more. It's like if you're very negative about things, you're going to feel worse about things. So, and then genes, I mentioned earlier, they're saying maybe 20-25% of living longer has to do with genes. That means 75% doesn't. So those of us without the good genes could live longer. Exercise, we hear about a lot. Investigate and know things, learn things. Keeping our mind active is really important. Nutrition, we're not going to go into nutrition today, but we know nutrition's important. And if you're questioning whether your diet's right, then talk to your doctors. And they have dietitians to help you eat well. And then getting rid of stress. So I'm going to invite Christy up to talk. Christy, you're up.
Thank you. Good morning. Hi. Isn't that awesome? Hi, Chris. Chris is one of my members. Yes, so he can vouch. So thank you for having me this morning. My name is Christy. I have been in the fitness industry for, let's see, I'm 86 now, so a while. Yeah, right? I'm here to talk today about what I have learned about my own journeys in fitness, what I learned with my clients, and then what I like to share whenever I'm in these situations. What can I share with you that will make sense, right? Now, let me ask you this. How many of you eat dessert? I love it. How many of you exercise? Oh, okay, so there were more hands for exercising than dessert. That makes me really happy. So longevity, that's a great word, and we all want to know more about what we can do to live healthier as we mature. So that's going to be my word, is maturity. So I don't want to be negative, but I'm also going to be realistic with you. And you've probably heard the science and you've read a lot of articles about what happens when you stop moving and when you don't exercise. So I'm going to touch base on that a little bit, and then I'm also going to touch base on the things that will happen and the things that you can improve when you work out and exercise. So cardiovascular, we know that if we don't condition our heart and lungs, our cardiovascular health can take a dip, right? And that can be very scary. Our muscles will atrophy, which means that we don't have the power and the strength to move our body the way we need to, just for survival, right? One of the things that research is coming up with now, and I'm a big science buff, I'm a nerd about it, and I always like to know what's new and what's coming out in research, is that, we used to talk about the fall risk, or being afraid of falling, or hurting ourselves, right? So what we want to do is we want to be able to have the power to get up out of a situation if you should fall, or you should be in a situation where you need to get yourself up out of a situation. So strength and power will decline if you don't keep moving. And we've probably all witnessed that, right? If we've been injured or we've had a surgery or something's happened. I have 2 hip replacements. Isn't that wild? Like at 86, how did I know that was going to happen? So I know firsthand, I'm not just saying, I read about it. I actually have been there, and I know what it feels like to not be able to move my body the way I want to. So I had to pull up my bootstraps and say, okay, I have to figure this out, and I have to do this. And I did, and I'm back into it. But it's easy to just like throw up your hands and go, okay, well, I guess this is the way my life's going to be now. Can't do that, and there's no reason to. If you don't exercise, your heart and lungs will decrease in capacity, and your heart will not work the way it's supposed to. Your muscles will atrophy, and you will not have the power and the strength to do the things you want to do and have a good quality of life. The other thing that happens is our emotional state. So when you exercise, your body produces serotonin. It's a natural hormone that is produced when you work out, exercise, move. Adrenaline is important. That is another component of brain and emotional function. Does that make sense? So some of you that raise your hand and exercise, you can vouch for that, right? Like when you're done, you're like, I feel really good. That felt great, right? So I want to touch base now on the things that exercise will help you do. You know, and I'm going to back up and say emotional health is one of them. You feel good when you're done exercising. There's a reason for that. Number two, you want to be social with your friends. Maybe your friends are walking or playing pickleball. Who's pickleballing in here? Anybody? Couple. All right. It's taken over the world. Yeah. So socially, it plays a very large role in your life, and it can if you let it, right? Join the walking group. Meet up with your neighbors, whatever it is that you want to do to keep your body moving. It will help decrease chronic diseases. That's really, really important, right? And some cancers. It can help with avoiding some cancers. So I want to touch base now on what kind of exercise. There is no specific exercise you absolutely have to do other than moving and strength training, right? So ladies, this is not just for ladies, but ladies usually have this more than gentlemen, is osteoporosis, right? We've all probably been told by our physicians that, okay, you have to keep moving to avoid osteoporosis, or not let your osteoporosis get to a different level. The reason why that's important is because when you build muscle, it puts pressure on the bones. When the bones have pressure, they create a cell regeneration and they get stronger, okay? So that's how muscle and bone work together. It's very, very important. Yes?
Can you say that sentence again? Just
Sure,
repeat it.
sure. Do you need me to talk louder? Because I can do that.
It wasn't that I did.
Is that better?
Maybe I-
Okay, all right. So when you exercise or you strengthen a muscle, let's say, for instance, you're pushing something really hard with your arms. That muscle, right, is regenerating, and it's pushing against the bone. Then the bone regenerates cells, which makes the bone stronger. Does that make sense?
Got it.
Yeah, that's exactly how that works. Was there any other questions about that I can answer for you? Okay, all right. So, movement. I am not saying you have to go play pickleball, or you have to go to the gym, or you have to do anything. What you really need to do is keep moving. So here's the new rule of thumb that's come out in my world. Move every day, right? Walk your dog, walk to the mailbox, but move, 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 move. Number 2, strength train 3 times a week. Now, I'm not saying you have to go, like bodybuilding. No, pick up something heavy. Maybe it's water jugs. Maybe it's something in your backyard. It doesn't matter, but you need to do that at least 3 times a week. Let's say 15 to 20 minutes. And what I mean by that is if you're picking something up and you're like, okay, this is kind of heavy. This is good. You are challenging your body and challenging your muscles. And that's exactly what you need to do to stay strong and to create, some confidence in yourself. That when you're walking along and you're doing things with your grandkids and you're out with your friends, that you'll have the power to keep going. Does that make sense? Yeah. The other rule of thumb is to get your heart rate up 3 times a week at its maximum for 20 seconds. If you don't know what your maximum is, ask your doctor. I'm not going to go there because everyone's different, right? Everyone has a different resting heart rate. Everyone has a different max heart rate. And the reason for that is if you have grandchildren and you're running and you're playing at the park and all of a sudden you need to run after your grandkid and pick them up and make sure they don't get hurt, you want to make sure you have the capability of doing that. And that's just good quality of life. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the gym, of course I'm going to say the gym is great because I work at a gym and I love the gym and it's great. And it's a great place to go and get everything you need in one spot. But if you don't have that access, that is okay. Just keep moving. Okay? The last thing I want to offer to you is that when you exercise every day, you can eat dessert every day. So that sounds great, right? Can I answer any questions? Thank you for having me. It was great. Thank you very much.
Rick, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, good morning. What I'd like to start with is first apologize. I was trying to get some mental health experts here to help us with what this author calls stress. It's really anxiety, but I'll get to that. This book was done a while back, but the cool part about it was they interviewed over 200 seniors, or centenarians, is that it? But one of the things that they did discover that stress was important, that the people that lived older were actually stress shredders. That when things would happen, it's not so much that they'd roll off their back, it just didn't affect them that much. One of the things that they talked about was that a lot of these folks had unbelievable senses of humor. So, and it's very healthy, so everybody laugh, will you? I brought some for so now you'll live longer. Can I have the next one? This is my favorite one. I see that a lot. But one of the things that is important about this is science is getting really good at it. This book was written 25 years ago. At that time, they realized that when we exhibit stress, anxiety, you're actually generating glucocorticoids. It's a steroid that shortens your lifespan. You got to have them. I mean, it's important to have that to survive. But the problem is our ancestors who were running away from Bengal tigers, maybe, they had it too, right? And they were just trying to live. Now, when somebody cuts us off on the road, we have that same feeling. And what we both get is a nice high dose of glucocorticoids. So one of the things that I wanted to point out in this book is, even though it was written in 1999, they talked about, as you saw it, getting rid of stress. That was in 1999. You don't want to get rid of stress. I mean, it's what keeps you alive. It's like if you're in a burning house, right? You're going to be stressed and you're going to run like hell, right? You don't want to be in that burning house being just too cool. I have a problem. The other two things that I found out were interesting in there, and the only two solutions they had to this was meditation and exercise. Now, I'm buying exercise 100%, but it's out in the book. They didn't talk about what kind of exercise. They didn't talk about what kind of meditation, because now there's a lot of different meditations. I'm going to move on to something that my partner was getting into, and hang on a minute. Most of us have that, what you call it, a paradigm? I'll call it a cognitive bias, if that's okay. That the human mind is both rational and logical, right? This is Daniel Kahneman. In 2002, he won the Nobel Prize. This guy is what the people on the East Coast call wicked smart. I mean, what he and his partner put together, a guy named Amos Tversky, took them 40 years to come up with a reason and how we make decisions. What influences our decision, right? I was very interested in it because if I'm trying to help somebody and they're making a decision that's a little, right? I learned not to say, hey, that's wrong, right? That doesn't work so good. But the other thing he did, and that's why I want to go back to on the bottom here, he describes cognitive biases as a type of error in thinking that occurs when people allow their judgments to be influenced by their own personal preferences, beliefs, or feelings. As my partner called a paradigm. That's an old way to look at it. These are things that we all have. That's a fact. The other thing I want to point out here, this book is almost like a textbook. It's 400 pages. It's like 100 pages of a bibliography where all this stuff came from. It did take them 40 years. They were consultants to the Israeli military, to a lot of different businesses. If you ever want to take the work and go through this, you're going to get a little depressed because you're not as smart as you think you are. But the good part about that is you're now learning you're not as smart as you think you are. Now you'll start questioning too, right? You're just accepting what somebody's telling you. I want to point out too that the two big pieces of the book was he looks at the mind as it's in constant battle with what they call a system 1 and the system 2 method. System 1 method is sort of like when somebody asks you, what is 2 plus 2? Right? But if they were to ask you, what's the square root of 12? You might be able to come up with the answer, but it takes you some time. That's your system 2 thinking. Most humans use system 1. It's quick, it's easy, right? And we all use it. Perfect example that I've been really figuring out. I can ask people a question about something that I know they don't know the answer to. I get an answer. We all do that, right? Try to ask somebody a question. How many times do you hear somebody say, I don't know? Right? Play with it. And you'll find out that they're using that system 1. We all do it, right? And it wasn't until, but it was 2002 that a lot of this stuff became evident. When his name came up for the Nobel Prize, he was booed. Nobody liked hearing that you're not as smart as you think you are. But the book is a real interesting book. And can you get to the next one? Oh, I'm sorry. Anyhow, that's okay. What I want to talk about is there's a voice in your head right now talking to you, saying this guy up there maybe doesn't know what he's talking about. Don't worry about it, it's normal. Matter of fact, you have 6,000 of those thoughts a day. Constant noise in there, right? Are you enjoying it? Well, fact of the matter is it's normal again. The term that psychologists have for it is that's your default mode network. That bad boy is running the whole time unless you want to get involved with it. Most of us don't get involved with it. This is Lisa Feldman Barrett. When I was a young boy, they still hadn't invented stuff, but one of the things that they taught us, and I'll bet, I'm 71, and I'll bet you any guy in here that's around my age, when you were brought up, you were told, boys don't cry, right? You were taught that man up, right? We don't want to hear those whining things that come from you, right? I believe that. I saw parts of her book, and she was my new cognitive bias. This woman doesn't know anything. I'm older, I put up with this, I got here with that attitude. Well, guess what? This is pretty much, feel free to read through these, this is pretty much what Christy was talking about with a paradigm. This is how your brain works. They used to think that some of this stuff was wired in us. No, you're constantly creating it. There's two things going on right now. One of them is that you're trying to figure out what's going to happen next. The other, and the way that you're putting that together, is you're thinking about things that happened to you before. The other thing that's influencing that a bit is how you feel about all this. So your days are pretty much spent working on your future. You're not working on right now. working on your future, right? How do I feel now? What's going to happen next? And does this match what's happened to me before? And that's how humans live. I didn't like her for a long time. She had a real thick book too. But this stuff is brilliant. She completely has changed the way that psychologists are looking at things. That's the name of the book. If you want to go through it, fine. It's also on Audible. It's a little dry. It's more psychology, chemistry, but man, neat stuff. There was a time, and we'll look at the next guy, if that's okay, Christy. This is Judson Brewer. If you have a pen, I would highly recommend that you write down his name. Judson Brewer was one of the earlier guys in this. About 7 years ago, he wrote this book, The Craving Mind. I bought The Craving Mind because what I wanted to do was learn how to develop a habit of exercise. When I was going through this, what he was doing was trying to teach smokers to pay attention to what their feelings were to stop smoking. He did a pretty good job. I mean, this stuff that he was doing, we now call cognitive behavioral therapy. He took it one step further. Once he could hook people up to an MRI, he could actually show them how they were thinking and change that. They got very good at it. He got very good at it too, because at the time what they were trying to do was come up with a phone app. And that app would help a smoker pay attention to those feelings and stop smoking. They had done the app in the lab. They hadn't had the thing financed yet. And that was about the time I stopped reading his book. I mean, I finished his book, but I went on to other things. One of the things that he also came up with was, matter of fact, I used this conjunction between momentary subjective experience and brain activity to treat a little problem that I ran into. I had an accident and I was in intensive care for about 6 days, but it didn't bother me because I was unconscious anyhow. But I went back to his book when I got to the end of my recovery period, and that was just the opinion of a couple of doctors. I wasn't there yet. I mean, constant dizzy spells and things. But I went back to use the same things he was using for smokers, and for the past 4 months, I haven't had a dizzy spell. It worked. Before I started this, I figured I better find out what he's doing now. He has a whole website. I think it's called Dr. Judd. And on that website, they will help you with anxiety. And if you don't have anxiety, I don't think you're breathing. I mean, sometimes it gets bad. I think that they're charging $130 for 6 months. But the whole idea of this is that they're going to teach you to start paying attention, right? Everybody here paying attention? We don't do it. It's more work. It's back now to System 2. Remember I talked System 1, System 2 with David Connolly? Yeah. System 2 is paying attention. You're not going to like it immediately. And the reason that you got to pay that $30 for 6 months, you don't learn this overnight. It's a whole different way of using your mind. That little part here, right? The part, this prefrontal cortex part, the part that the other animals don't have, the one that tells you what your plans are and things, that's the one that you're going to start using differently. And I've been doing that for a few years, and it's enjoyable. I'm telling you, it's not. Matter of fact, I can see somebody off to the side here that's meditated longer than I have. This is not the meditation you think it is. This is actually focusing on things, what you're getting stressed over. And if you're committed to it, you will get so good at it, you see it coming. And you can stop it before it starts generating what? Glucocorticoids? Shorten your life? I I mean, spend 30 minutes a day for the next 6 months, and I'm sure you'll increase your lifespan longer than that. And it makes life more fun, right? I mean, it's not, because you're not, those 6,000 thoughts a day, some of them are the same thought, right? So anything that's stressed you out, over and over and over and over and over, and it gets to be more stress, anxiety, deep anxiety, right? Until you're not doing so well mentally. Matter of fact, he created something they call, I like this word, I thought, neurophenomenology. Right? That was his big thing.
What's his name again?
Judson Brewer. B-R-E-W-E-R. I'm telling you, he's one of the smarter guys I've ever read. So now, let's go to the last one. All right. I just thought this was fun. Cool, huh? Matrix. I'll tell you about another cognitive bias. Here's something interesting. The first book about aging was written in 1999. The movie, The Matrix, was written in 1999. In 1999, Judson Brewer wasn't published. In 1999, Lisa Feldman wasn't published. Some people say that the basis of this story influenced a lot of folks. Not me. I had a cognitive bias. It had Keanu Reeves in it. I saw that guy in that movie, Bill and Ted's Big Adventure. I thought that guy was the biggest tool that walked. I watched this movie, and I wasn't really paying deep attention to it. I just watched all those special effects and said, that's pretty cool. It wasn't until about 5 years ago when I realized there was a story behind this. And the story behind it seriously was that the people in the people's minds had been taken over by something called the Matrix. And that gave them what their life looked like. It wasn't their life, but it's what they thought their life was. In the movie, he had to make a decision, whether he wanted to go with his life like that, letting somebody else control what he was doing, or take the red pill and control his own life. And that's really the point of what I'm talking about here. Moving towards taking care of your mind is going to take some time. But imagine what you could get out of it if that when something happened to you, you didn't get really upset all of a sudden. Imagine something unpleasant happens to you, and instead of getting really upset, you turn around and go, oh no, I know what happens next, right? It's not healthy, it's not good for you. Plus, it's a good movie. I think I'll watch it again. The book we started with was Living to 100. This book is replacing that book. I would have done more with this guy's book. I'm only halfway through it. One of the things that he talks about that I'm buying 100% is that if you want to take care of yourself at this age, right, you're going to have to put some time and effort into it. A lot of them, he's an MD. I'm not an MD. I'll just tell you what it says in the book. He says that what they have to deal with in terms of usual medicine, everybody has to follow the same routine. And none of us are the same human. We're all different. But when he was in medicine, what he didn't like is he had to treat everybody the same way, and he knew it was wrong. He talked about 3 things that are important. 1, exercise. 2, nutrition. And 3, mental health. And let's call it mental emotion, because that's pretty much what we're dealing with here. He said, Christy said, exercise is the most important. I started thinking about it. I exercise. I mean, I like it. I do it. I started thinking about what caused me to start exercising more. Well, it was my mind, right? So we're saying, there's three things you have to pay attention to, and everybody goes, well, which one should I do first? Well, I think all agree that exercise is what you should do first. But there's this cognitive bias that's telling you you don't have to exercise. This cognitive bias is going to tell you when you do exercise for the first couple of weeks, you need some time off, right? That's the thing that you're going to be challenged with the whole time. And if you want to get to an older life, which is healthier, I'd say emotional health is probably, it's my opinion, this is my cognitive bias. Mental health, emotional health is more important than exercise. You can't get to one without the other. And that's all I have to say about that.
Jonathan, tell people who you are.
Hi everyone, I am Jonathan Schwartz, and I've lived here in San Diego for about 20 years, and my sole focus has been on trying to help older adults age well. And so I have a company called Partner in Aging that helps people navigate the stress and the maze that our society, I feel, has created around aging and finding the appropriate aging resources. My other passion, and I think the necessity, is for our society to recognize that there is tremendous capacity, not only capacity, but need for older adults to give back and share their talent with the world. And so today's discussion is going to be about the longevity dividend and how older adults can give back in the most meaningful ways. I want to first talk about thinking, challenging this group. Think back over the past 100 to 150 years. What is the most remarkable achievement in American history over the past 100 to 150 years? And so I have a couple slides here. The Industrial Revolution, amazing. More and more immigrants, more and more people came to this country. Technology, business began to explode. The car. There was a time before cars didn't exist. This was an amazing achievement in innovation. The airplane. Oh my God. 100 years ago, people would have looked up in the sky and thought, what is that? Today, we can go from San Diego to pick a place, New Zealand, within a day. World War II, victory in World War II. I can't imagine what this world would have looked like had the result been any different. Remarkable. Landing on the moon. This was before my time. Does anyone remember this? A computer. There was, my grandparents have told me there was life before. Pretty important. The internet. Ideas have now been able to be shared from computer to computer across the world. Today we have more access to information than ever before. ChatGPT. This is a new one I just put in. Anyone familiar with ChatGPT? This is a large language model, artificial intelligence, that we will begin to hear more and more about. Think of this as your own personal assistant that never talks back and never complains. Most important achievement over the past 100, 150 years is this. These are my children. And Christy, I'm done. Most important history event that's happened in the last 100, 150 years is this. What? What is this? In the year 1900, average life expectancy was only 47 years old in America. Over the past 100 to 150 years, we've gained an average of 30 plus years of life. Amazing, amazing. And I think truly this is the most incredible thing that's happened over the past century. More and more people have the opportunity now to live to older age. This is a wonderful thing, of course, right? And so as we see in the slide here, in the year 1900 in America, there were about 3 million people 65 or older. And in the coming decades, we're going to get into the 70 plus million. I'm so sorry for the blocking. Many call this a silver tsunami. Getting more granular to San Diego, you see the San Diego statistics. This is from Sandag. More and more older adults are coming to market by the day. In America, 10,000 people a day are turning 70 years old, thanks to the baby boom cohort. However, there could be some challenges with our aging population. Governments, society, medias are concerned about what this might look like. We have a presidential election coming up in about a year, and I think more and more discussions will be around entitlements and our aging population. Some people are concerned about strains on healthcare systems. Has anyone tried to visit their doctor recently? Have you had to wait at all to get an appointment or to hear back? There aren't enough doctors, there are not enough nurses, there are not enough caregivers to care for our growing aging population. I don't know if you know anyone that's suffered from some age-related malady, dementia, Parkinson's. What did that do to one's family? Was it a burden on their family, financial or physical? These are some of the challenges that we might face, but this is a cute cartoon. My wife begged me not to put this in. Older man stands with an older lady. She says, no, I said I've got a cute angina. There's even more inappropriate ones. And here I go. For the last time, you need to call a doctor for that. And the older man saying, no, reptile, I have a reptile problem. I read this to my almost 6-year-old. He didn't understand. And I told him one day he will. So I have a video. This is Bill Maher. This is several years old. I'm concerned that it may not be loud enough. We might try it, and then if it's not loud enough, I'll just stop it.
Put your microphone next to the speaker.
And finally, new rule, now that the race for president in 2016 has finally begun, Democrats must turn to the one person who has a record of competence and reform unmatched in their party. I'm talking, of course, about the man California just re-elected, Jerry Brown. The man who took California from broke and ungovernable, as it was said by to be under Governor English as a second language. Took it to flush and leading the nation in job creation. If Jerry Brown was 55, that accomplishment in this giant state would have Democrats hyping him for president. But they're not, because he's 76, and ageism is the last acceptable prejudice in America. Well, that and Asian drivers. But mostly ageism. Only in America is age more important than the fact that Jerry Brown took a broken state and fixed it. And he did it in his 70s. Oh gosh, call Ripley's. He must have taken governing Viagra. He's so old, his sex tapes are on Betamax. You see how easy it is to make an oldie joke? And that's fine. Oldie jokes are fine. All of us should laugh at ourselves. But to seriously assume that just because Jerry Brown is 76, he can't be president? That is a terrible prejudice. And stupid. Because age is always relative. Jane Fonda looks like she's 40. Yeah. And Lorde looks like she's 40. Diana Nyad was 64 when she swam from Cuba to Florida. Lindsay Lohan is 28 and can't make it across the room. Tony Bennett is 88 and Lady Gaga is using him to seem relevant. And where do people go when they want advice on the most important thing in the universe, money? They go to 84-year-old Warren Buffett. And not to gild the lily, but the Rolling Stones are great and Justin Bieber sucks. Age is relative and it's individual. Jerry Brown may be 76, but he runs 3 miles every day and he does yoga. Whereas the only exercise Chris Christie gets is pumping the nacho cheese dispenser. You know, 4 years ago, CNN replaced Larry King with the man who disproved the adage that all English people are smart. And Larry wasn't let go because he got worse at what he did. He does a web show now, and he's exactly the same, i.e. better than the rest of the news folk on TV. And he's not better in spite of being 80. He's better because he's 80. His job is to elicit information from a broad spectrum of people. He's in the seen it all business. So it's a nice asset that he's seen it all. Of course, Larry's not as beautiful as he once was. We all suffer the corruption of the flesh. Eventually, the girl with the dragon tattoo becomes the old lady with the tattoo dragon. You know who this hottie is? That's Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg in 1953. That's life. You're beautiful when you're young and you're wise when you're old. Duh. Only we don't get this. Our culture is shallow.
So, as you can see, that was from several years ago, but probably still relevant. Has anyone here experienced any form of ageism? I think Bill Maher has a point. It could be one of the last acceptable
And finally, no.
prejudice. Sorry there.
Is that still on YouTube?
It is, yes. I'm sorry, everyone. I think I got out of the slideshow, and I'm so nervous to change it, but you can still see the crux of this. So, talking about ageism now to benefits of aging. There are benefits. Increased wisdom, greater expertise, emotional aspects of life improve. Do you remember being a teenager? We are better at being able to handle stress, worry, and anger. There are so many benefits, I had to put it on another slide. As the world begins to age, not only just America, but the developed world, we have lower risk as we get older, lower tolerance to war and violence. And my hope, maybe a romantic thought, is that as the world begins to age, maybe we will see fewer wars and less violence. Charities, as we get older, we become more philanthropic. Charities, nonprofits are going to reap the benefits of a growing older population in ways that we've never seen before. As we get older, we are more empathetic. We can put ourselves in the shoes of other people. And with all this being said, as we get older, we actually become happier. There's a theory that as we become older, we spend time with people that we care about most and engage in activities that we most enjoy doing. That actually makes us happier. Does this man ring a bell? Do you recognize this guy? This is Captain Soley, and he landed a plane upside down in the Hudson River. Can you believe this was in 2009? That was almost 15 years ago. 15 years ago, I had a lot more hair. We all did. At the time that he did this, he was 58 years old. And I don't know what the current rule is as a pilot, but in 2009, 60 was forced retirement age. So he was 58 years old at the time. And I wonder what a 28-year-old would have been able to maneuver the same. He said shortly after this incident, he said, "It might be that for many years I've been making small, regular deposits in my bank of experience, education, and training. On January 15th, 2009, the balance was sufficient so that I could make a very large withdrawal." I absolutely love this quote. Experience matters. Does anyone recognize this guy? John Glenn. At 77 years old, he went to outer space for several, at that point it had been several times that he'd been up. And I absolutely love this story. This story, in a lot of ways, changed my life and my viewpoint on what aging and what the purpose of aging is. Shortly before John Glenn took off, this was in the late 1990s, an interviewer asked him, "Mr. Glenn, you're 77 years old. What are you doing? Why do you want to go to outer space? What else do you have left to prove?" And he said, "Just because I'm 77 years old does not mean I still don't have hopes, dreams, and aspirations." I think far too often our society discounts older adults and what they are capable of and what they still want to do in life. We often ask older adults, "Tell us about your history." I think that's an important and fascinating question, but perhaps more important is to ask an older adult what it is they still want to do. Elders possess more time, wisdom, connections, and money to give back in the most important ways. Not always, but often. There's a term in aging and gerontology called successful aging. We've touched on that a lot today. Successful aging is, in my opinion, having good physical, mental, and social health. And I speak on this because if you want to make a difference, if you want to actually give back to community in a meaningful way, the only way you can do this is if you actually feel well. And I think so much of what the other speakers addressed today touch on this. We heard about many books today. There's one that I very much like called Blue Zones. You may have heard of this. There's an author explorer that traveled to 5 different places in the world where people are living longer and healthier than anywhere else. These locations are, I'll run through them very quickly: Okinawa, Japan; Nicoya, Costa Rica; Sardinia, Italy; Icaria, Greece; and Loma Linda, California. What? Why is Loma Linda up there? We're going to find out. So this author, this explorer, traveled to these 5 different locations because they're what were called blue zones. These are places where people are living longer and healthier than anywhere else. And he wanted to figure out, why is this the case? Are there any commonalities that these cultures are engaging in? And here are a list of 9 different activities that these cultures tended to do. Movement. We heard today about movement and how important that is. Move naturally. Don't just go to the gym for 30 minutes in a class. All day long, the people living in these cultures were moving, walking. Many were farmers. Many hiked the mountains, even into older age. Purpose. I think it's so easy as a young person to have purpose, or far easier. We go to school, then there's work. I wake up every day for my kids screaming at me. That's how I get up each day. But then when the kids are out of the house, maybe there's retirement. What is that reason for getting up each day? These cultures tended to prioritize purpose in older age. Downshift. We heard about relaxing, meditating, whatever that looks like, to relax and to unwind. Number 4, these cultures tended to the 80% rule. Eat until you are 80% full. It's likely that in our society, we eat a little bit too much. And when we do eat, these cultures tended to eat mostly plants. in plant-based proteins. So that's number 5. Number 6 is my favorite. I'm excellent at it, is drinking wine. But it's got to be red wine, and it typically comes from the Greece and the Italian region. There's an incredible amount of mixed data on the benefits of wine, and I'm not here to advocate for that because there's a good argument that no alcohol is also good. Number 7 is to belong. Can you believe that belonging to any religion, just feeling connected to some spirituality, increases longevity by up to 10 years compared to those non-believers? Number 8 is to prioritize one's loved ones, right? It's so easy to take for granted the ones that we love most. These cultures spent a tremendous amount of time, care, and energy into their loved ones. And number 9 is right tribe. And right tribe means engaging with other people, spending time with other people that are positive and that also share in healthy lifestyles. We talked about laughter today. There are so many benefits of laughter, and it's fun. But adults don't do this enough. It decreases pain. Laughter can lower blood pressure, can have better outcomes from heart disease and cancer. I put up here, be the reason someone smiles today. I think it's one of the nicest, greatest things that you can do for someone. How are we on time?
Yeah, 5 more minutes, yeah.
So Harvard came out with a study recently, a longitudinal study that looked at inner city Boston kids compared to Harvard students. This was back 70, 80 years ago. And they wanted to know what makes for a long, happy, healthy life. And they studied these 2 different groups, lower income compared to privileged, educated people. On an annual basis throughout the course of their life, they took blood samples. They looked at how much money they made. They looked at their children, any type of data point that they looked at to try to compare. And the single biggest predictor of what makes a long, happy, healthy life are the relationships that we have with our friends and our family. Invest in face time rather than screen time with your loved ones. I put this up here. I'd be remiss to say this quickly. This is a book these are 2 books that my grandparents wrote. They are not famous people. When I was 13 years old, I had my bar mitzvah, but they were pretty well off, and I knew this at 13. And I opened up their present thinking I would get a huge check from them. At 13, instead of getting a big check, I got this. 2 books about their life. It was one of the greatest disappointments I've ever experienced. I didn't read it. It took me almost 20 years to read this. In that time period, they passed away. Shortly before my kids were born, I read their books, and it was the greatest thing they could have ever given me. And I share this story because I encourage everybody to write down some semblance of their story, their morals, their values, something. Their story does not have to be from childhood to midlife to older age. It can be a single word, something that you want your friends and family to remember you by. I'm skipping for a few, but I think when we talk about, again, engagement in society, that is the purpose of older age. Think about what are you an expert in? What are you interested in? What are you passionate about? And what challenges do we face? I'll end by showing this picture. Does anyone recognize this picture?
Oh, yeah.
This is an Iron Lung Hospital. I've been sharing this picture for several years now, and I'm almost 40 years old. And in my life, I've only met 2 people that have been diagnosed with polio. And this picture was taken in the early 1950s before the vaccine came out. At the time, the national plan was just to build more of these iron lung hospitals. And I show this because the rate of progress is amazing. The rate of progress is very fast. And I hope one day my son or my daughter can come up to an audience like this and to speak about something like a memory care community and to show dementia is a thing of, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that's what people used to do. Yes?
Well, I have a question. We were talking about us as older adults. One thing, the experience and the memories that we have, the young people today don't want to hear them, and they don't want to listen. So one of your challenges would be maybe to get them to start listening to the older, more experienced people who may have the experience, but doesn't do us any good if they won't let us pass it on.
Good question. Maybe we can tackle it at the end. Last thought is, I believe in the 20th century, the greatest achievement was that extension of life by 30 years. I think this 21st century will show that the greatest achievement will be that older adults achieve unbelievable things in their remaining 30 plus years of life. Thank you so much for your time and look forward.
So do you want to try to address this question?
Absolutely.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So what kids don't want to hear the advice or the wisdom or expertise of older adults, right? How do we get them to listen? Put down the phone.
They're not taught in school.
They're not taught in school. So I think the challenge is that we've segregated our society in different ages, right? I think there needs to be a lot more intergenerational activities happening for younger people to experience an engagement with older adults. The benefit, though, is I think medicine, and I think that today's older adult will be able to relate to a younger person better than ever before because you're more comfortable with technology than today's typically 90-plus-year-old person might be. Maturity also happens. Maybe it's hard to get connected to a teenager or someone in their 20s, but as they get older, they will get more connected.
Does anyone else have a quick question?
Not a question, I just would like to suggest that modeling is awesome.
Absolutely. Modeling.
You don't have to talk, just show.
The purpose of older age is to be a mentor.
Any other quick questions? Yes, please.
What was the island in Greece that it has the longevity? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Ikaria, Greece. Ikaria, I think is how you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. So in the brochure that was on your seats, it has about the next two seminars that are coming up. So in June, we have the one on financial advice and legal advice. And in July, when we're going to be in the new one, we're going to talk about senior living communities, places like the communities or 55 plus, like High Country Villas. There's different places. And a lot of us don't know what we don't know about what options are out there. And so we'll be reviewing some of the different types of things to do aging in place as we get older. And I just wanted to thank you all for coming, taking the time to become more aware of how to age and enjoy your life as you're aging. So can we give Jonathan and Rick a hand as Chris as well?